Hi, my name's Joe Butch. I am the senior pastor at Grace Point Community Church, and this is the first episode of The Dive. This is a new series we're doing where we're going to jump into the sermon from the Sunday before and dig into some more of it. Sometimes there's stuff that doesn't get preached. There's all kinds of notes here, and I don't get to all of them every time. And so I brought in some of my co-workers and friends here to dig into it more, to dive into this thing. So, guys, why don't you introduce yourselves so we can know who we're talking to?
My name is Dustin. I volunteer here and I do most of the media. That's what I do. And I just want to let everybody know that we will have a link in the description of where you can actually watch the sermon. So if you want to watch that first and then come back to this, please do.
Yeah, you're gonna be confused.
Yeah, very helpful. Hey, my name is Pastor Brad. I am the executive pastor here, and that's a big title for not so much of a big man. I don't know,
You're
but
great.
we're going to be hanging out and having fun.
Yeah, it's a good time. So we started a new sermon series 2 weeks ago, working out of First Timothy, and so yesterday or this past Sunday was on First Timothy 1, 12 through 20. It's Paul talking to Timothy. He wrote a letter to him while Timothy's working at the church in Ephesus, and he's basically giving him some instructions and telling him, "Hey, these are some warning signs, some things you need to work on, and then some stuff you just need to do in general." So we talked about. Should I read the whole scripture? If you want to read the scripture, it's 1 Timothy 1, 12 through 20. But there's the first chunk there. Paul really just gives his testimony. And a lot of the sermon yesterday, we talked about what is a testimony. And it was funny. I should have called on some people to give a testimony. But I learned from Pastor Scott that can get real dangerous real quick, right? So not everybody can give a concise version of your testimony. So when's the last time you guys gave your testimony?
Yeah, for me, I think I tried. Oh man, I can't really pinpoint
Yeah.
exactly when I gave my testimony, but I do feel like I give it quite frequently I probably give who I was prior to I was before I was a Christian more than I do the second and third part.
Huh.
But I probably talk more about who I was prior.
So we broke it
That
down
it was.
into 3 parts. It was who you were,
Yep.
what Jesus did for you, and then where you are now.
Yeah.
All right, and that makes a pretty good, concise testimony. You guys agree with that? I think that's pretty-
Yeah, no,
absolutely. yeah, that was perfect.
That's actually what I wanted to touch on was when I rewatched it last night to get prepared for this. That have you ever heard of T for T? Has anybody ever heard of T for T?
I don't know that
I have
phrase. No.
not heard
You
of
never heard T for T. So
No.
T for T is
like a steroid or something.
That's-
Is this testosterone?
no.
That's TRT. Different.
TRT. Oh, is that what it is? I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I didn't even know. So it's called, it means training for trainers.
Okay.
Say that again.
Training for trainers.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And what it is by this. There was a guy named Ying Kai, I think it was, and I forget exactly where it was. And I wrote some of the notes down, but he through this T for T, he planted 150,000 churches
What?
and 2 million baptisms through this thing. And what it was what he did is he went into a village, and he asked like a group if he could just meet with some people at a church, a local church, like a thing. And I'm not going to go into all of it, but what he did is he was like, what I want you guys to do, and these people were all from different villages too. So what he's like, what I want you to do is I want you to write down like, I think it was like 10 names that come to your mind right now. Okay. I want you to write down 10 names. And so they write down 10 names. And then he's like, okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to circle 3 names that are the most important to you on this list. And he writes down 3. They circle 3. And he says,
MySpace. When you
yeah.
Yep.
All right.
I was thinking
So,
the same thing.
and then he was like, this is what I want you to do. I want you to write down your testimony that only takes you 3 minutes to tell. And this is how you do it. You say who you were, 1 minute for who you were before you were a Christian, 1 minute of how you became a Christian, and then the third is what has God done for you since you've been a Christian. And he says, this is what I want you to do. And people, they left that and they literally started churches like in their village from that. And like and that was it. That was the T for T thing. And that's how it kind of blew up. And he wrote a book and people got saved. And it's a very effective way. If you can learn those, like just those 3 things in very short, quick time, then you can see people move in your life.
Yeah, man. So coming from a youth ministry background, we went to some trainings called Dare to Share. And I don't know if you guys have heard of those, but a guy by the name of Greg Steer started that organization, and very, very similar concept. You go out, first you come into this large group of teenagers, like 4,000 or 5,000 teenagers in one auditorium.
Yeah.
They give a little bit of training, same thing, how to share your testimony. Then they actually sent you out into the city that you were in, and like you had to be the guy on the street and saying, hey, or just different things. It was super cool. That's probably been 10 years ago. I think they're still around, but same concept.
And it's an interesting thing where like most people, like you come into church and people that have been around for a while, Christians, like they know all of those things. Like they know where they were, they know what Jesus did for them, they know what he's done. But like just the conscious effort of telling them and having that able to like draw back on it and pull that, into your everyday, because it's not going to happen unless you're purposely doing it. Like you could have the opportunity presented to you and just totally whiff on it. And that was the Churchill quote, right? What a tragedy.
I love that. Yeah.
He's the easiest dude to quote ever. There was one, I'll butcher it, but there was one where there was a political, somebody opposed to him, this lady, and she said, if I was your wife, I'd poison your tea. And he said, if you were my wife, I'd drink it. Like the dude
that's pretty good. That's sharp.
That's funny.
I like to pull him in there as often as possible.
I think, like, we can learn those three things and be very good at it. But if you're not using it or you're not praying for God to, because I firmly believe that if you pray and ask God to put people in your life for you to share your testimony with, that he will be faithful and do that. Someone might even back into your truck and you might actually be able to use it. I could be totally wrong on this, but it is a possibility.
Not that we're hoping that for everybody in the congregation. Right?
Bump. Fender Bender Ministries? Is that what it is?
We need stickers.
Oh,
that's call up Sticker Mule.
And something I didn't get into yesterday, that just because stuff happens, you never know.
Sure.
You write these out and you're like, you don't know how it's going to go, and sometimes you just get over stuff. But you don't ever want it to be so mechanical that it just becomes just hi, my name is, and like that can be effective sometimes, I guess. But you want it to be, it's you telling your story and how Christ has impacted your life. And so it should be something that's personal and directed to people. And it's like, you don't just want to like read it off.
No, you don't want to just walk up to somebody and just be like, boom. I think it becomes like in a conversation. Like what I always try to do is trying to find a common denominator, like build a relationship. Mm-hmm. Like you don't have to like, just like, machine gun your testimony out, right? Walk into a crowd and be like,
You can go do that if you want.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying, like, yeah.
And I guess there are occasions where, like, you might not have so that's the hardest part. Is it's at least maybe for me it's harder that way, but for other people it might be the reverse. But if I built a relationship with someone, I can share that testimony with them. Sometimes I struggle with, I barely know this person, or I might not see this person again. What should I say to them, and how far should I just beat them over the head with what it is, or should I, should I just be Jesus to them and hopefully they'll figure that out, or do I need to go a step further and be like really pointed with what I'm saying? I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying there? Do you feel that? Like, do I need that relationship all the time, or can I just?
No. I think you just need to read the Spirit. I mean,
open to the
open to the movement of the Spirit. Yeah, let the Spirit. Yeah, let. I do think that we're meant to be farmers, and we're supposed to lay seeds. And I do think that we're not always meant to like. We all play our part. We all know the parable. Yeah. We all know. We've all heard a sermon. Yeah. We all know, and so I do think we need to play our part and know where our part is. And you might just share your testimony, and then that's it. And then the next person who comes along shares their testimony or something, and things happen.
So we were at lunch yesterday, and we had some friends visiting from out of town, and just went out, and they had little business cards from their church that had a QR code on it, and it was You were seen. I was going to say we were seen. You were seen.
That's cool.
And so they left that for our waitress, right? And it basically with
Don't leave just the Bible.
Leave some money too.
People do that.
But the one thing that I liked about it was it it gave her, it witnessed to her, it let her know her value, that kind of thing. But it also gave her like the next step.
Resources.
Like, yes. Like you can go, if you believe this, you can go here,
Yep.
you know? And I think
cool.
one of the hardest struggles that I have with like street corner ministry, the guys with the bullhorns that say, "Oh, you're a sinner," and all that stuff, is that even if somebody in that crowd believes that, you know, oh,
Yeah.
I am a sinner, what do I do next? Right?
Sure.
That is totally done. I think you have to have a plan.
I think
to help them after that.
even with the card though, you can't use it as a crutch. You have to be careful. Like people like, oh, I invited a person to church. Like, oh, I did my little duty. Check mark. I invited that person. And so like it can't be also a crutch. Like you have to. And I think like, well, I mean, I think a lot of us, we don't like confrontation.
Sure.
You know, we don't like
confrontation.
no, we don't like no's. Yeah, we don't like rejection. You know,
It sounds weird to say it, but it is a bit of a ratio thing, a game where it's a volume shooting where like, yeah, everyone that you talk to about Jesus or invite to church isn't gonna respond to that. Not just immediately, but maybe ever. And so if you're only talking to one person every 6 months,
yeah, but it's all yeah. That's why it's not your job to save anybody.
no.
Your job is never to save anybody. Your job is never to get anybody saved. That's God's job.
Yeah, you reflect Jesus.
Yes, our job is to be the farmer.
Yes.
Our job is to plant seeds.
Yeah.
Our job is to water. Like when those seeds start to grow, our job is to water.
Yeah.
Our job is that is what our job is. And I think people are like, man, I didn't get anybody saved today. That's not your responsibility. You know what I mean? Like take the pressure off.
Thankfully, you didn't.
Yeah,
get
yeah,
anybody
like-
saved
yeah,
today,
like-
because if you did it,
Yeah,
it's
like-
not going to last,
How many
right?
salvations did you have from the service?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. That's God's job.
Yeah.
My job isn't to play the Holy Spirit. My job isn't to play Jesus. My job is just
Try that.
Yeah.
yeah.
People try
doesn't
that.
work out very well.
Oh, my
The blue Kool-Aid doesn't taste good after a while.
That reference.
And something further. So it's Paul writing to Timothy, and Paul calls himself, what was the phrasing was some type of aggressor. I forgot.
Oh,
A violent aggressor.
Violent aggressor.
Because I was a violent aggressor, not just someone that was so fixed on what he was supposed to do, what he felt like he was supposed to do. Because remember, he thinks he's right when he's killing these Christians. He thinks he's
Oh, sure.
defending his own faith. And then Jesus gets a hold of him, changes him completely. And now all of a sudden, the guy that was killing them is ministering to them. And sometimes it's hard to accept the testimony of someone that you know. When you were there with them in the early
Yeah.
days,
Right.
sometimes it's hard for us to let go of what has been done. Even if it wasn't done to you, you'd be like, oh, that guy's going to get up there and preach when I was there when he was, drunk as a skunk and like falling over himself. It's like, I saw you then. It's
Yeah.
hard for me to see you now as this new person, but we have to, we're talking about the eyes of Christ, right? And like seeing people the way God sees them and like he sees them as remade and renewed and transformed. And like, sometimes we have to get over that too, especially when you're in a church that's close to each other and you've known each other for a while.
I don't. I don't think I've ever. If I know someone who's living in sin,
Yeah.
then I have that feeling like, well, you're up here doing it. But somebody that I know that have made a complete transformation,
Mhm.
then it's easy for me to be like, where that person came from.
Yeah.
Maybe because they didn't kill anybody and they didn't kill any of my friends.
Yeah.
But a lot of but it's like for them, they didn't actually know Paul. They didn't walk with Paul. They just they just knew of him or knew what he has done. So they didn't know if he was conning them.
Reputation.
Yeah, exactly. So that is maybe a little different. And then there was no social media, so we don't really actually know what his posts look like.
How Paul's been
Yeah. But I mean, we know the story. I mean, after what Paul did afterwards, and if you truly give your life to Christ, the transformation is real.
Yeah,
And it is.
It was like, oh, I can't believe I'm talking about this. You remember, like a year and a half ago when Kanye West got saved? All of a sudden,
yeah.
you remember that?
I heard something about that.
I remember it was like 2-3 years.
Yes,
ago.
I remember.
The big debate in the church was like,
Was he
genuine?
saved?
Is it real or not? And I can't decide that for somebody.
No.
right? But it seems it's for some reason there's like a group and I don't mean like this church. I mean
Yeah.
the church that just wants to like grill everybody on their credentials. Like,
Oh,
are you
yeah.
really saved?
Sure, sure.
Are you really?
Sure.
Like maybe you're not, because we're more saved than you, because we haven't done the stuff you've done. I'm sitting
Yeah.
there thinking, don't we all need Jesus? Like, don't we all
Oh,
have this
100%.
same moment where we can, if you can look back and see who you were before Christ, and how can you not connect with someone who has been there and is trying to get to where you are through him, right?
So I think one of the things, when we're talking about this whole testimony stuff, I don't come from a background of like vile sin. Like
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm a vile aggressor. Like Paul said, I was a pretty mild mannered teenager. I got saved when I was 15, so I didn't have a lot of time to get out and party and do all
Yeah.
of that kind of stuff. And sometimes there's a reverse stigma, and maybe it's just in my brain. Because I didn't do all of those things, maybe I don't have those experiences. That people look at me as more of a goody two shoes, or it brings up a story. I had a friend that I grew up with. He was about 6 or 7 years younger than me. We went Sunday school class together and all kinds of stuff, youth group, that kind of jazz. And like I said, I was saved 15. He was like 10 or 11 when we first met. Just through some different things, as he got older, he was in a car accident, dabbled in some drugs, some other stuff. And I saw him, 15 years later, 10, 15 years later, and we were talking at a flea market. And I was like, hey, how you doing? And he was telling me about some of his struggles. And I was like, God can help through that. And he looked me bold in the face and he said, Brad, what do you know about that? I was like, oh my gosh, dude.
Oh.
I almost crumbled.
Yeah.
And I had to just, explain, that my struggles might be different than his struggles. But, I think that can go both ways. We can look at the Kanyes or the Kat Von D's or, some of these high profile Justin Biebers, and say, oh, they've been out in the world, who are we? But
Sure.
kind of goes, I think we're all a little bit judgy on the inside.
So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of churches, like when someone gets saved, they expect them to jump in a microwave and be out in 60 seconds, like
Right.
perfect, right?
Yeah.
And so like I really feel like people have forgotten how long it took them to get to where they're at.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
100%.
And like
Yeah.
the years have passed, and they just think like, boom, boom, boom. And then we talked about a little bit about this yesterday, that God works with everybody different, and God doesn't like just tell you like you become a Christian and then God's like, okay, I want you to stop doing shoo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think the things that are black and white, I think, even those things that are specifically in the Bible, think people have to work through with their salvation. Like after they become a Christian, like you don't just get rewired completely day one.
Yeah.
Like God has to, you're so prior to being a Christian, I mean, things are so like not Christian, not biblical, not Jesus, that God has to start pulling plugs and reworking,
The analogy I like is like if you went into the hospital with a gunshot wound and you had high cholesterol, they're not gonna even worry about that yet. They're gonna
yeah, exactly.
the gunshot wound. Like,
Yeah.
we gotta take care of this right now.
Yeah.
And then later in a blood test, it comes back that you have high cholesterol, and they're like, oh, also take these meds later. You didn't even know you had that issue, but because they fixed this bigger one you have, now you have time to focus on the smaller one. And there's stuff that God's worked on me about that I wouldn't have even classified as an issue for me before, or even right after I was saved and got serious about faith, where like, obviously I knew these big things I had to work on. And then he fixed that. Like he worked on those things with me. And once those were like, pretty good, he moves on to like, well, what about this now?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I didn't even,
And then we were talking about
I
that.
need to take that tour or whatever.
'Cause we were talking about sin last night. We were talking about sin yesterday, and we were talking about how, what were we talking about? We were talking about how, yeah, we did. That there's ignorant sin. There's a lot of ignorant sin in your life. Sin that like you don't even know is sin. That's not black and white biblically. That there's maybe the way you're talking to your wife, maybe the way that you're treating these people at work or stuff like that. That God's like, okay, I'm planning on getting there, but we need to deal with these bigger issues first.
You're bleeding out.
Before we get to these issues. And the black and white ones are the easy ones.
Yeah.
Because they're in the scripture.
Yeah.
And I think that also as Christians, we need to know that people heal different. People take time, work on things different, and it's our job. That's our watering job as a farmer.
Yeah, you got to tend the crops.
Yeah. So like, yeah.
That's good.
Hmm.
So then that was the most of the first half of the message there, and then it was almost too put together, but I thought they linked together pretty well. But
I do. Wait, what? I just want to touch one thing about.
you got all right,
No, just one thing that you said about it is easy when you talk about your past, depending on if you have if you
glorify it,
to
make it
glorify
sound
it.
awesome.
Yeah. So like I have this like because like you hear me like because like especially like my life of what there's just so many things and it's so hard for me. People are like, oh, I did that. I'm like, oh, you did that? Like what? I did way more than that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like, oh, you only did this? Like, oh, let me tell you. Like, and I struggle with that because it's like we put this coolness.
Yeah. You should never make sinful past attractive.
Yeah, and it's
What's your testimony for then? If you tell me your whole story, you sound way cooler back then than you are now. Like I want to know that guy. Like you don't.
Yeah, and I struggle. I think I struggle with that a lot. You know, and that's that was
so cool.
I used to, and skinny. I'm just kidding.
I think that's about all of us.
Yeah,
except for Joe, who's still skinny.
Yeah.
No, I'm getting there, guys. I used to have hair. See, you got me there.
We got you.
You got me on that. But yeah, I see people falling all the time. They'll start to talk about their testimony and where they're talking about where they used to be, and I'm thinking, well, doesn't sound like you really like not being there anymore. Like sounds like if you had the choice, you'd rather be back there.
And again, pointing back to youth ministry, that happens a ton.
Yeah.
You know, you just you got to kind of squelch some of that.
And maybe there's a version. Dustin, you kind of talk about this a lot. Where like, how much of your story do you owe other people?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I like that.
So maybe there's a version of testimony that's not a lie or a misrepresentation, but like when I'm talking, it made me think of when you said youth group. I would not tell a group of 6th and 7th graders the same testimony I would tell.
Oh yeah.
11th and 12th graders.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It would be,
or even adults.
it would be similar, but there's things that I just wouldn't go into.
You would leave a lot of things out.
Not to deceive, but just because not only are they not maybe ready for that, but also that could trip them up. And now I get that kids are dealing with stuff younger and younger, but there's a level of, and if I'm in a big setting, like if I was in front of the whole church, I might say it a different way than I would if it was just me and you talking about. It's not that I'm misleading anybody. It's just that in different settings to different people, you get a bit of a different amount, I guess, of it.
No, for sure. Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah. So if you're Christian, you should know your testimony and be able to deliver it effectively in a small time setting. Says someone who just preached.
And right. I mean, write it down. Write it down. You know, get into a spot, write it down. You know, practice it. You know, go practice on your mom, practice on your dad, practice on your sister, practice on your brother. Empty room, a mirror. A mirror.
My dog listens.
I'm evangelizing my dog.
Yeah.
They need to be saved too.
Oh my goodness. We don't need to get into
Nope.
that.
No, I'm just joking. I'm just kidding.
We don't need to get
All dogs.
whatever. All right. The second half of the scripture was when Paul he's writing to Timothy, and he kind of gives him a bit of a warning, and he highlights two people who have kind of fallen away. I think he says he's handed them over to Satan so they could be taught not to blaspheme, which is like, that's a heavy statement.
Sure.
And he used that term shipwreck, which we dug in on there, which I thought was just awesome. Like, I love because you don't ever just read scripture. Like I tell people that, like, because you just read past it, but like the words that are used on purpose. It's like shipwreck because people knew what that connotated when you said shipwreck. But I like the relationship between Paul and Timothy. He called him my son 2 times in the first chapter, and you can tell that they're just close and they serve together, and that Paul trusts him. And this is where he talks about fighting a good fight. So when's the last time you were in a fight?
Oh yeah, that's what you said.
The last time I was in a fight, I was in 3rd grade.
Oh,
Yeah, so I believe it was the only real fight that I've ever been in.
nice.
So in my elementary school, we had to go outside to go to music. I don't know if everybody did that, but our building wasn't big enough, so they put little trailers in the back.
Oh yeah, we had those.
Eastern Kentucky.
We had those up here too.
But so we were going outside to music on like a Tuesday or something and standing in line, and the largest boy in my class was behind me, and I was the smallest boy in my class. So he, I think he thought it would be funny just to push me from behind. So he pushed, I turned around and kicked him as hard as I could
Did
in
you
a
rack
place
him?
in a place that you don't want to be kicked.
Rack 'em.
Just as hard as, and he fell to the ground. Fortunately for me, he didn't get back up. The teacher came and got us, but took us both to the principal's office.
Nobody's getting
I
back
got
up.
paddled at school that day. And then I got paddled when I got home.
Paddled? I'm just joking. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Well,
I'm I'm just joking.
for those of you that are under the age of 20, I can explain that to you. But yeah, like that.
What are the holes in the paddles for?
I'm 33.
Oh,
We
no, I'm just
didn't
joking.
have-
Okay,
we didn't have that.
I'm a little bit older than that. Corporal punishment.
My dad used to say they had to make their own paddles in shop,
Oh,
and then the principal would. I
that-
don't know if that
that
sounds
would
like
be
an
fine.
uphill both ways type of parent story.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that's true or not, but that's what he would say. So
Just-
you won.
I
Look at
I
you.
would. Oh yeah, the only fight. I'm 1-0.
Nobody puts baby in the corner.
Nobody. Yeah.
Huh.
Nobody pushes. Brad
Man,
in the-
fight. The last fight, like fist fight that I was in. I could picture a lot of fights in my life. Man, okay, a lot of fights.
Hey, don't glorify it. Just tell
Yeah,
me.
Man, I'm just trying to think, like, but I don't remember, like, as of course, as an adult, like, I think the last fight was, I don't even know if it was me. I mean, believe it or not, I have a mouth on me,
No,
and I'm very sarcastic, and I can get people very upset very quickly.
I've never seen that.
I know that's gonna be crazy. I find it funny, but people always have to go to their fists. I mean, it's use your brain. Like, if come back at me,
right.
but no, that's not how it works.
They run out of brain power. It turns
No,
into fist.
No, the last fight it was a pool hall thing and whatever, and I didn't even fight. I had people fought for me. But
It's the best way to.
Yeah.
no, yeah.
Let the Lord fight.
But I grew up. I mean, it was a lot of fights. I got bullied in school early in the elementary school. Got in some fights in junior high. Fought my best friend a few times. I don't know.
Those don't count.
I don't know.
No.
No, I mean, those,
No,
When you-
no,
these ones kind of count,
No.
especially in hockey when you take a hockey stick and
No.
swing it at my head
doesn't count.
or beat in the street. No, they're
Nope.
yeah,
If you're fighting your best friend, it don't count.
yeah.
That's just Brad.
We
don't-
Come on now.
No, I'm with
I mean, there were some real fist fights.
That's like
Friends don't count.
yeah.
And best friends don't count. If you
Absolutely.
he's not your best friend until you got in a fight.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
No,
No,
Like,
yeah, but fight, yeah, like real fight, like, I mean, I'm not even in the shape. I'm hoping that nobody, you ever see that the Kevin Hart, the thing where he's like, if you get in a fight, like, I'll be off in the corner and then we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
Like, I hope that I hope my wife or no, I mean, we're pretty quiet people. I don't want to be in any more fights. I'm not in the shape. You know what I mean? I don't even know if I could beat up a squirrel right now. So, like, I'm literally,
Those are vicious.
you have to say it. I'm not trying to fight anybody right now. I'm a peaceful maker.
I say boys fight, men resolve conflict. So like once you're an adult, you shouldn't have to throw hands in.
I'm quick to say I'm sorry.
Unless you're picking it.
I'm quick to say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize. I'm surprised the customer hasn't punched me in the face yet. But besides that, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So we do have a tendency to glorify fights when the truth is fights are terrible. Like they stink. They're the worst. Even if you win, like if you've seen I've seen pictures of like people who got in fights and you punch somebody and like you have to go get all kinds of shots because someone's tooth went into your hand.
I'm good.
And it's like it's gross. Like fights are even if you end up on top, like they're not fun. So I wanted to phrase that into because he says good fight. It's like, wait, so
What's a good
what's
fight?
a good fight, right? Obviously there is something about that. And trying to break it down into, well, how do we fight well? And it really stuck with me about like how many things and how many times we fight when it's just totally unnecessary.
Sure.
And how many times I want to just ask somebody, even within the church, of like, do we really need to be fighting?
Why are we fighting for that conspiracy theory?
Yes. Or even
Do you know what I mean? Or
do you really care that much about this thing that you
Sure.
feel like someone
said something about
crossed the line?
Sure.
And it's like, okay, could you step back and evaluate, maybe go, okay, they are spiritually more of an infant. And I don't mean that as a,
Sure.
as an
I
insult.
go.
just mean they haven't grown as much. And maybe I need to, instead of interpreting this as an attack on me, I need to see this as how can I help them grow through this? And like, that's just not people's first reaction, but how much more would the church be the church if that's how it's like, oh, you're not at me right now. This is the enemy. And we need to fight this well instead of just
Oh, yeah,
down
that's good.
because-
Yeah, I think that fits well to your point about getting rear-ended last Sunday.
Dude,
I still chuckle a little bit. Sorry.
it just hurts my soul.
I know, but it would have been really easy for you to just continue that that demeanor with the young man.
Oh, I wanted to
but
so bad.
but when you went to him and said, "Hey, I'm frustrated with the situation,"
Yeah.
it's not necessarily you I'm frustrated with. It's just
that
it's just
sentence
yeah.
has diffused
Yeah.
marital fights,
Yep.
family fights, the truck fight. Like I've used that multiple
Customer
times.
service fights.
Yeah.
Over and over again. Like, hey, I
Yeah.
am frustrated. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
Like, I am not happy about the situation, but understand that I see you, and obviously neither of us want to be here. Like when it was that happening.
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
both of us would rather be where we were trying to go.
Yeah.
And this stinks for both of us. And let's just. I'm mad, but I'm not mad at you directly.
Yeah,
Like,
the,
let's just
the
work
number of times I've used that with my wife.
Oh yeah, I've done that before. I've told
Me
that
too.
story, like never move furniture with your spouse.
yeah.
Never move furniture with your spouse.
Yeah,
But, you know-
or paint a living room,
Yeah.
or lay flooring, or yeah.
Man, yeah, just like, hey, I'm not mad at you. I'm
Yeah,
just mad
yeah.
at the
This
situation.
just stinks. But
And that really it disarms people.
Yeah.
Like the dude immediately. It was like all of a sudden we're experiencing the same thing together now instead of against each other, and it changed the whole demeanor. Like you could feel the. I hate using the word vibe because I'm not young enough to use it, but you could feel the vibe change.
Sure.
it's the vibe list. But I think it goes to your point. You have to prepare for those moments.
Cool.
Like if you're intelligent and you think through it, you know that they're going to come. So how am I going to handle these things?
If you wrote that out on a paper and we're sitting in a class and like, how should you react to this person? Everybody's like,
Yes.
oh, well, you should be Jesus to them.
Yeah.
Like I was
Then the situation happens.
Yeah.
You're like,
I was not kidding. If it happened midweek, I don't know if I would have passed the test
Yeah.
the same way.
Yeah.
Like it literally, like I could hear myself from the sermon right before that, like talking about lowering your, yourself,
Sure.
like lessening. Yeah, that's a word. Lessening yourself and seeing someone else is valuable and ministering to them, even if it costs you. Like I heard that going through my brain. I'm like,
I mean, I think like in situations like that too, like you really have to ask like, God, what are you trying to teach me in this moment?
Yeah.
Because it's really not all about you.
I know.
And I'm not saying that like God, I mean, it's possible. I'm not saying that, but I'm not saying God made the guy run into the back of your truck, but the situation is what it is. And I think you have to, one, ask yourself, God, what are you trying to teach me? How do you want me to try to act? Who do you want me to be? And then as being a pastor, of course you're put up on a higher pedestal, I mean, but I mean, it is, but I also think it's biblical too, a little bit when they say that pastors are going to, for whatever you teach, well, you know what I mean? You're going to be held more accountable.
Yes.
And be
for-
careful what you preach on, because
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to be held more. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well,
I preach on patience a lot.
Yeah.
Because,
man, I remember like I don't want to tell the story because I don't want to put any pride on myself, but I remember I heard a sermon and it was about loving God loving others like yourself. And literally that was what the sermon was about. And I walked outside and there was a homeless guy with no shoes on. And I was like, well, here you go. Here's my shoes. Have a good day.
Yeah.
sweet.
Yeah, it was like perfect. So like, but I just felt like we get those, and I think that like when you're walking with Christ, there are going to be tests that God. It's about what is God trying to teach you in that moment, and especially God gave you an opportunity, a one-on-one, because like the frustration was, maybe there's too much pride in your truck. Because I bet you if it wasn't,
No, that is exactly what.
yeah, because if it was an older truck, it was like whatever, you just whatever.
It wouldn't have been as big of a deal if it wasn't the new
Yeah,
vehicle.
exactly.
And so like I was
You have
driving.
to step back and say, okay, maybe I'm putting, God dealing with you in a certain way
Yeah.
where like you were like you felt a little too cool in that truck,
Yeah.
a little too, whatever.
Knock you down.
I mean, I felt really great at the Tesla. I'm just throwing it out there, but
Tesla was awesome.
yeah. So no,
I'm glad we didn't crash that.
let no one rear run this. I'm like, Brandon, here you go. Have a good day. Bye.
Have a good day.
Yeah. Call your insurance.
Paul, I hope you got insurance. Oh, and then the one thing I hit on was like if you can work through your first initial like gut reaction to something.
Oh
A
yeah,
lot of times if you can just get over that, because we're physical, we're also spiritual. There's a mix of chemicals that hit your brain when you get mad and frustrated. That if you can just get through that initial little bit of time where you're almost like not thinking, you can make such a better decision. If you can just get through that rush of adrenaline and whatever else it is that is ingrained in you, and just get past that to the next level of and actually engage your brain into, well, how do I want to react to this? What do I want
Yeah.
this situation to say about me? what is God trying to teach me through this?
Yeah. It's like the boxer that takes the jab to the nose, in the first few seconds of the fight. Like he's got to shake that off
Yeah.
and endure through, and like
Yeah.
the pain and all that
Endure
stuff.
through.
Yeah.
Look at you
Yeah.
bringing a point back. Yeah.
I'm trying to bring it around,
So let's see. The first point was prepare well, right?
Mhm.
And then the second one was to endure through. Oh, what are you going?
Well, I was gonna say like what puts up with like one of your points yesterday was making sure that the word lived in us.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that like as the word lives in you, like for you especially, like
Treasuring the word in your hearts.
Yeah,
Don't
so,
sin
like-
against it. Psalm 119:11. Yeah.
so like yeah, your initial reaction was straight frustration,
Uh-huh.
but the moment that you realized quick,
Yeah.
God spoke to you quick,
It was like
and
the-
you were quick to respond and say, you know what, God, no, you're right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that also goes back to entire sanctification. But
Ooh, we're getting there.
but
No, you're right. though.
but
You're
but
absolutely right.
but like
Yeah.
because it's not that sin's not going to come into your life with front door.
Yeah.
It's not going to like sorry, but it's
No,
not.
this is good. This
No,
is good.
but it's not like since not going to come to your front door. It's not like you might not initially make the wrong decision, but the moment God tells you to fix it, you don't debate it. You
No.
don't try to figure it out on your own.
No, you don't talk him into your point of view.
Exactly.
Yes,
You just
yeah.
and that's what I was. I thought. Well, I told you that's what I was. That's my definition of entire sanctification. And so like that is the person that. But that's not going to happen unless the word is living inside of you.
It's got to be real. Yeah.
If the word has to be naturally flowing. So when those situations occur, like you're quick to fix whatever you did wrong, or you're going to get to a point. I mean, some of us are still young. That like, I'm just kidding.
Wrestling like at me when he said it.
No, I'm just
okay.
joking. No, we're all still pretty young, Dylan. We're still walking through this Christianity thing.
Yeah.
Hoping when I'm 60, 70, or 80,
You
that I
figure it
like,
out a little bit more.
yeah, that I haven't figured out a little bit more. I haven't figured out a little bit more than I did at the beginning. And I hope I have
Yeah.
figured out more at the end.
Yeah.
That it's just like those things. It's not a big deal at all. Like I know how Christ wants you to act,
Yeah.
the Christ attitude that you're supposed to have and
Mhm.
flow through you
Yeah. Yeah.
because of the preparation that you did,
Yes.
that you've been doing through God's word.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's because you've put in so much work through God's word, and you're praying, and so in situations it's just like whatever.
Yeah.
Like how does Christ want me to be in this situation? It's just a
And
natural.
doing it.
It's not even a
Yeah.
thinking thing anymore.
Yeah. So I love the practical application. And the first thing that, came to mind talking about preparing, daily or weekly or whatever, what are we, some practical ways to do that?
Yeah.
Reading, praying, saturating in scripture, listening to podcasts like this one, stuff that
Self-plug.
stuff that, you like that stuff, stuff that it's going to edify you. That's going to grow that Holy Spirit
Yeah.
connection.
What do you put in?
Yeah. What
And
you
then-
put in is what you put out.
the temptation to not let the enemy guilt you about your first reaction.
Mm.
So like I had that first reaction
Mhm.
of frustration and anger, and then like when God kind of comes up against that, and you're submissive to Him in that moment, to not in that moment the enemy is also there going, well, you've already lost because you're mad,
Sure.
and that's not true at all. That's not true at all. You have a moment to make a decision on: am I going to continue this path? Or am I going to submit to what God is telling me to do right now?
Yeah.
And a lot of times we let the enemy whisper in your ear, well, you're already here and you're already mad. So you might as well just double down on this, right?
Just plug the guy.
You've already been mean to this person. You've already
Yeah.
said that to your wife. You've already yelled at your kid. You can't go back and apologize now. You can't be a flip-flopper and change your mind. And it's like, no. You can absolutely say, hey, I was wrong. I got this wrong at the beginning, but now I'm going to get it right because God has checked me on this. Much rather people would do that instead of get trapped in that first initial feeling and feel like you have to double down on it just because we're humans and we're stubborn sometimes, right?
Oh, you're
Like,
speaking to the king right there of that.
have you ever been mad about something and then realize like 10 minutes into it, like you forget, I'm like, why am I still, this is dumb. Why am I still mad about this?
Yes.
And I did not feel that way about the truck, but I needed God to take me out on that one. And the final point there was about, it was prepare well. What was the middle one?
Endure
Endure
through.
through. Yeah, endure, because life is not going to be easy.
Mhm.
And then finish strong. And this one was complicated because we think of finishing strong as like a life. This week, last week, Paula Chalfant, she passed away,
Right.
and you think about finishing strong, and you can say that about the way she finished her life in the way that Brian, her husband, was there for her. But like sometimes when we look at it in that big picture, it's hard to think, okay, what do I do next though to do that? And so I wanted to break that down into like, all right, if our life is one race to finish strong, we can shrink that into a day-to-day thing.
Sure.
How do you finish every day strong? And it's logical to think if I'm finishing my days strong, eventually I'll finish my life strong, because one day that will be all you have left is a day.
Yeah.
And you don't know how long it's going to be. I mean, we're all under 50, right? More under than that, Brad. But Brad's not 50. Brad's not that.
I'm close.
But like, how old were you when you got COVID?
2 years ago, so what? 38.
38.
Okay.
And I mean, you were knocking on the door, my dude.
That's what they say. That's what they say.
One of those doctors said 5% chance, and I remember thinking that's just something nice doctors say.
Yeah,
They
like,
don't want
he-
to say this guy's.
he's about to die.
Yeah.
Like he has really no chance.
Like that's what a doctor
Yeah.
says when you have no shot.
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
remember just praying about that, and we were in the parking lot, and God was working, and
Yeah,
it was crazy, dude. Like how you were not the normal story with that. Like
No.
most people that got that bad checked out,
Yeah.
and I'm glad you didn't, by the way.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, he stuck around. Yeah.
But
Thanks, God.
but you didn't know 2 weeks before. You didn't know the day before you were in the hospital. You were
Oh no. Oh no. Yeah. No. no.
But that's how fragile
Fred. Yeah.
life is.
No.
And I brought it
100%.
yesterday with the whole, when celebrities die, we talk about it, right? But like
Yeah.
Matthew Perry was playing pickleball and got in his hot tub.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
that's it.
Shocked the world.
But like you don't know. You just don't know. And so it's important to make sure that we're finishing well day to day.
Yeah.
And that's why I made fun of the Steelers for not finishing that game well. That was fun.
That's
The
funny.
Steelers fan up there. I'm not sorry.
Yeah,
I'm not sorry at all.
That was funny. The day-to-day thing, like Rob Dyrdek. Rob
Yeah, I know,
Dyrdek.
yeah.
Ridiculousness. I mean, that's what he's famous for. Ridiculous. That's
He-
that's what he's
Amazing business.
He's a real.
Yes. So like if you ever watch his podcast,
Business.
yeah, like I mean, like for what he's done, but he talks about how he has this like Excel spreadsheet, and he grades his day, and he puts
Huh.
measurements in his
Yeah.
day of like I don't know exactly how it breaks down, but it's exactly, and at the end of this day, he can see how well he did, how he spent his time, and how well he spent it every single day. He has a spreadsheet. He says he wants to publicize it where people can use it as an app,
Yeah.
but he says it's every single day, and he measures his day like literally every
What?
like
what a
and he has
discipline.
plans for like boom boom so many, but he has like a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, if whatever, but he also has like an Excel spreadsheet that he breaks down every day. But it gets me thinking like, how do I spend my day? Because it's so easy to think that tomorrow exists.
Yeah.
It's so easy to think like I'll do it tomorrow. And I fall into this all the time. Procrastinator, 101.
Yeah.
And so
That's
like
how my brain works.
yeah, like I mean like I don't even know what it means. Like she's
tomorrow. I got 12 hours.
She's like, hey, can you do that? My wife all the time. Hey, can you do the dishes? Yeah, I wasn't planning on it, so I'll do it tomorrow because I'll actually put that on the calendar now. Thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, can we go to here? Well, I wasn't actually planning on that, so can we plan it for tomorrow? And so the more I think about my days more and more, maybe because I almost died, but
yeah, it'll do that probably.
yeah, but I still find myself like, oh, I'm good now, right? And so it's, man, living your day every single day, and making it valuable, not especially if you have a family.
And you're a runner, Brad. Like
I was. I've not ran in a while, but yes.
but like you can start perfectly. You can have an awesome race, and you hit the last mile, and it could all fall apart. Literally, there's people that don't finish.
Yeah.
Because getting to that close to the end of it, and that is devastating to put in that much work to something. And I've seen videos of people that like they get to the end of these marathons and their legs just don't work,
Yeah.
and they look like they're
Spaghetti.
like they're just like stumbling and falling over themselves and like crawling to the line because they just can't get to it. Right? There was the boxing match. I think it was Tyson Fury and Francis.
It just happened. Yeah.
And like you could tell toward the end, like Fury's a boxer and Ngannou was an MMA guy, and you could tell like he was running out of gas.
Yeah.
Like he just didn't have the gas to go 10. I think they went 10 rounds, and like he just, even though he was probably winning the fight. He just didn't have the fuel to get there. And it's sad to see. One of the most there's two things in ministry that are just devastating. It's when you see somebody get to a point where like they're having a genuine encounter with Christ, and then they try to explain it away.
Yeah.
Like I've talked to people and been like, "Hey, what happened?" They're like, "Oh, I was just emotional," or blah blah blah. It's like, "Oh, you missed it. Like, how could you miss that? Like that was it." Or seeing somebody who has been a active Christian, a follower of Christ, and then decide to walk away from that, and you saw like what God was doing with their life. And now you see how because you can decide to just walk away. And there are people, like I said yesterday, there's people that would argue that with me. That would say you can never lose your salvation.
Oh, yeah. I think the farmer, I go back to the parable on the farmer.
Yes.
Like the parable on the farmer, I just think it explains everything in that. You know what I mean? Like, it explains so much. People, read the parable on the farmer.
Yeah.
Like, it lays out everybody. And so that's why I don't get up. Like, if you're trying to walk through somebody through Christ and they don't say yes, or you're trying to water and they walk away, it's not because of you. It has nothing to do with you. Has nothing to do with you.
All the seed that got thrown was good seed.
Yeah, everything.
It was the soil
the
decision.
Exactly. As long as you're committed like the farmer, and you play your part, you have nothing to worry about.
And what else was I talking about last week? Gosh, there was so much. But shipwreck, and how that word would have connected with people, and how important it is to know the audience that you're speaking to, whether it's one-on-one or a group of people, and to use, like, I'm really big on, I hate using big words when I'm preaching. I like throwing them at you guys during the week. But when I'm preaching, like I type up all my messages. When in college, I got my degrees in history, and in history, you just write papers all the time. You just write papers. I'm talking like papers, like long papers, just detailed, sourced, all that stuff. And I didn't realize then, like, God was training me to write sermons. And so that's kind of how I do it. Some people do bullet points. Some people don't prepare at all and just walk up there and talk. I would not recommend that. Long term, I would not recommend that. You can pull that off occasionally, but I would not recommend that long term. But I write in manuscript form. You can see, like, different color means different things. Like, pink means illustration. Yellow means you should probably say. Green means don't you dare not say that. And blue is scripture. Like, that's how I do that. You know?
That's really good.
And then if I have too much yellow, I just do caps after that. I'm like, I can't do that much yellow, so just put some caps in there. But like, it's a system that helps me get there.
Right.
But as I'm putting this all together, I'm in this permanent conversation, not permanent, but like a conversation with God about what it needs to be said and how it needs to be delivered. But like knowing your audience, and so like I'll write some things and I'll write a word and I'll get checked like immediately, like really you're gonna that's the word you want to use, like what do you how many syllables can you fit in one word, bro? Like change that. What do you like? That's not because I don't, like, there are intelligent people that can understand that, but I want to, if there's a 12-year-old sitting in the room, I want them to be able to understand what I'm talking about. And not because I don't believe in the intelligence of the people, but I believe in simple doesn't mean stupid. And the more simple you can make a message, the more people that can understand it, the better that's going to be. Same way with your testimony.
Yeah.
The more way you can simplify that and just tell people about it, just straight, without having to use extra fancy words, like, the better off it is. Unless you just want to sound smart and not relate to people, which is a terrible strategy.
Yeah, for me, I'm the opposite of the sound smart and not relate to people.
Yeah.
I have a tendency to oversimplify everything.
Yeah.
Just like you said, coming from a youth ministry background, coming from a business background as well. Like I've got to explain what I want as simply as possible with no question.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I think that's pretty good. What do you think?
I think that's great.
The first edition of The Dive.
The Dive.
Yeah.
So we'll finish strong, right?
Yeah.
How's this working?
We do have to figure out a dismount for us, by the way. Because on other shows, we have nice dismounts and stuff.
We'll figure it out as we go. We'll keep it simple. We'll keep it
sound.
Yeah, well, we appreciate everybody
Oh, hey.
that watched,
Yeah.
and we hope that you got something out of it. Leave in the comments, share your thoughts. And yeah, thank you so much for watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun.
We'll be
And-
back next week.
Fun.
Well, and if you want to actually see if you want to see the sermon actually live, I'll leave a link in the description to our church's Facebook page, our YouTube page, so that you actually be able to see the sermon live. But
If
thank
you
you.
want to see it live, you can come to church.
Yeah, but if you're somewhere around the world and you can't get here, you're somewhere around the world and you can't get here,
We also live stream.
we live stream and we'll share that. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. You have a wonderful day and have a wonderful week. You guys too. Bye.